Just before this episode, here's how you can get more from Never a Truer Word. If you're listening to this podcast on Spotify, you can subscribe to this channel to get early access to the weekly analysis episodes, video episodes so you can see the statements as I analyze them, and exclusive content too. And if you're here on YouTube, then become a member of the channel to get early access to everything and exclusive content not available anywhere else. Hello and welcome to Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Or in this case, find out how you can find out what someone is really like, what their personality is like, what their priorities are like, just by looking at their words. And the words we're going to look at are the words, once again, of Pastor John Paul Miller. Don't know who John Paul Miller is? Well, he is the guy who earlier this year announced at a sermon the death of his ex-wife, Mica. It was the most bizarre appearance ever. Apparently, it came at the end of a church sermon. It was a kind of, oh, by the way, my ex-wife has died. Since then, a whole lot has come out about John Paul, a lot of allegations, a lot of insinuations, and he has made some bizarre utterances since then. And we're going to look at one of those now, because I found a video of him talking about Mica's legacy project. This is something that he says is in honor of Mica, but is it? Is it? And what does he really think of Mica? And what does he really think of himself? That's what we're going to look at in this episode by decoding the statements that he uses in this video. A quick caveat from me is I could only find this reposted. I like to work with the original source material whenever possible, but look, it's definitely him. It doesn't seem to have been edited or altered in any way. So let's go with it. And this is how his video starts.
Hey y'all, I was just sitting here looking at some pictures and videos, of course, of my wife, and couldn't help but come across all the ones that have to do with the mission trips that we went on. I'm not a missionary. I don't like missions trips. I'm a teacher. I like to stay home and teach, but she loved the mission trips, and especially when she went to Africa last year.
So he starts by saying, hey y'all, I was just sitting here looking at some pictures and videos, of course, of my wife, and I couldn't help but come across all the ones that have to do with the mission trips that we went on. I'm not a missionary. I don't like missions trips. I'm a teacher. I like to stay at home and teach. But she loved mission trips, and especially when she went to Africa last year. So when someone starts talking, let's look at the first words they use. He does a, hey y'all, which is introducing himself to a large audience. So he's broadcasting here. He's not talking one-to-one. And he starts by talking about himself. I was just sitting here looking at some pictures and videos. In previous analysis, and I'll link to all the previous work I've done on John Paul in the show notes, I've said he is very much concerned with himself. And that's what it looks like again here, because he starts off talking about what he was doing. Look how casual he tries to make it look. I was just sitting here looking at some pictures, and I couldn't help but come across all the ones that have to do with the mission trips. He makes it sound like he was, just going about his normal business, doing nothing special. And what should he find but pictures of missions trips? I was just sitting there. I couldn't help but come across these pictures. He's overdoing it. And that is that he wants it to appear casual, as if this is something that's just popped into his mind to do. And when you overdo it like that, always a very good chance that this is not casual. This has been very deliberate, and this is his deliberate way of getting into this message that he wants to tell. He talks about his wife, Mica, actually his ex-wife, Mica. He refers to her as my wife, but there you go. A measure of the man, I think, and says, but she loved mission trips, and especially when she went to Africa last year. Now, that's straightforward and believable, but not very flowery. I don't get any sense of why she loved the mission trips, what it was about them she loved, what she got out of them, or anything like that. But I do get a lot about John Paul, because he talks about himself. Before he talks about Mica, he talks about the person he is. I'm not a missionary. I didn't like mission trips. I'm a teacher. I like to stay at home and teach. So once again, it's his self is his priority, and he can explain himself and who he is much better than he can explain who Mica is. He uses convincing language when he says, of course, I was looking at pictures and videos, of course, of my wife. Why, of course? Of course is a convincer. It's to say, well, as if there would be anything else I was looking at. It's manipulative language. He wants us to think that Mica is first and foremost in his thoughts all the time. But as we've already seen there from maybe 30, 50 words that start this video from John Paul Miller, he's mostly concerned with himself. Here's the next part.
When she came back, I picked her up at the airport, and she was overwhelmed with joy. And she came back. She said she wanted to start a school, a Faith First Academy in Africa. And I said, Mica, you can't do that. I said, that's not possible. We don't have the money. We don't have the resources. We don't have the teachers, the curriculum, the location, the place. We don't have it all.
Now, I think when he's making this video, he wants it to appear that he is honouring Mica, that he's saying very nice things about Mica. But when we break down the words he uses, he really isn't. He's revealing so much about his personality and who he is, and very little about Mica at all. So there he said, when she came back, I picked her up at the airport, and she was overwhelmed with joy. And she came back, she said she wanted to start a school, a Faith First Academy in Africa. And I said, Mica, you can't do that. I said, that's not possible. We don't have the money. We don't have the resources. We don't have the teachers, the curriculum, the location, the place. We don't have it all. First thing I notice is she came back, and he has to tell us that I picked her up at the airport. When she came back, I picked her up at the airport. Well, aren't you a great guy, John Paul, going all that way to the airport and picking her up? He could have told this story without saying he picked her up at the airport. He could have just said, when she came back, she was overwhelmed with joy. But no, he has to put himself into the story and show himself in a good light. I'm even wondering if this happened because in his telling of it, Mica came back twice. When she came back, I picked her up at the airport, and she was overwhelmed with joy. And she came back, she said she wanted to start a school, a Faith First Academy in Africa. When action happens twice, when someone's telling a story, a fair chance it's being made up. And here, Mica came back twice in his words. She came back and I picked her up at the airport. She came back and said she wanted to start a school. Not buying that. And then just look at what happens when Mica says she wants to start a school, a Faith First Academy in Africa. I said, Mica, you can't do that. I said, that's not possible. Now, there we go. This is controlling language once again. Think of all the ways he could have stated this. I said, Mica, that's going to be tough. Mica, that's a challenge. Well, Mica, that sounds like a dream. Could it become a reality? But no, very definitely, you can't do that. I said, that's not possible. So look, what he wants to do here is tell a story of Mica overcoming the odds. But in his language, it shows all the time that he didn't think much of Mica. You know, you can't do that. I said, that's not possible. And he's controlling, and he thinks he is better than Mica. You'll notice that he said, I said, Mica, you can't do that. And what are the reasons that Mica can't do that? It's because we don't have things. So Mica, you can't do that. We don't have the money. We don't have the resources. We don't have the teachers. We don't have it all. So he's therefore saying he saw Mica as reliant on him. Because we, I think, is Mica and him. So nothing ever entered into his head that Mica could do this or achieve this on her own. In his head, for Mica to do anything, she had to rely on him. So Mica, you can't do that because we don't have things. Really getting a picture of this guy being not a very nice guy at all. One of the ways we can learn about someone is look at how they order things. And this list of things that we don't have from John Paul really shows you where his priorities are, because he leads with money. We don't have the money is the first thing that he says. It's the first thought that comes out of his head is about money. The second one is we don't have the resources. Very similar to money there. Almost, I think he is saying twice, we don't have the money. And then it's we don't have the teachers, the curriculum, the location, the place. And then just to cap it all, we don't have it all. So money, very high up in John Paul Miller's mind.
Well, that was kind of a challenge for her. And so for the next month, and the way when you communicate with Africa, they're in a completely different time, of course. And so when you send them a message, you don't get a response to the next day, and then you send it, and then the next day. And about a month later, she brought me a notebook. She had the teachers, the location. She even had the lunch lady, someone who was going to bring these children food. And she brought me everything we needed. And she got it down to about $500 a child per year.
So he says, well, that was a kind of challenge for her. And for the next month, and the way when you communicate with Africa, they're in a completely different time, of course. And so when you send them a message, you don't get a response till the next day. And then you send it in the next day. So he said that was kind of a challenge for her. Yeah, not a challenge for him, not a challenge for the pair of them together. This was a challenge for the little lady. This was a challenge for Mica, and kind of a challenge for her. He's putting her down again, I think, there. Who communicated with Africa? He never says it was him. So although he's trying to come off as very worldly, and I know how you dealing with Africa, I know how hard it is. He says when we communicate with Africa, you send them a message, you don't get a response, and you send it. So as much as he'd like to show off there that he's very worldly and deals with Africa a lot and knows how difficult it is, he doesn't say he has had any experience of communicating with Africa at all. Potentially, the way this video is going from John Paul, that's very important. He continued, and about a month later, she brought me a notebook. She had the teachers, the locations, she even had the lunch lady, someone who was going to bring these children food. And she brought me everything we needed, and she got it down to about $500 a child per year. Bit of vagueness in here. It was about a month later, and she got it down to about $500 a child a year. When people are a little bit vague about things, I'm like, did this happen, or are you exaggerating one way or another? So about a month later, and she got the price down to about $500 a child per year. Once again, we get this language that shows he considers that he was above his ex-wife Mica. She brought me a notebook. I mean, this feels like someone who is more a servant or an employee. She brought me a notebook, and she brought me everything we needed. I know what he's doing here is trying to say how great Mica was, but in the words that he's choosing to use to describe this, he's revealing so much about how he sees her, how he saw her, and how they interacted. She brought me a notebook, and she brought me everything we needed. By the way, you'll notice that it's she brought me everything we needed. So actually, in his telling of the story so far, Mica has done all the work. She's gone out there, she's made all the contacts with Africa, she has done the costings, and she's found a location, and she's found the people, she's even found the lunch lady. She's brought me everything we needed. Why is it what we needed? Why isn't it she needed? Or even the children needed in Africa? No, it's we needed. Is that because grateful that Mica, with her brain power, has come up with some system, some foundation in Africa that is going to make John Paul look like the good guy. Good old Pastor John Paul Miller. He told Mica that these things were impossible, and she went and made it happen, and he has brought this school to Africa. I think that's what's going on there. But yeah, I really don't like that. I'm interested in how this video goes on about food, because you're going to see food mentioned a few more times in this video. And he says here, he introduces the thought of food. She even had the lunch lady, someone who was going to bring those children food. Now you notice how many words he spends there talking about it. She even had the lunch lady, someone who was going to bring these children food. Compared to the teachers and the location, the food gets a lot more words, and it's introduced as she even, so it's a surprise. They'd spoken about maybe the school, the curriculum, the location, but they'd never spoken about food. But Mica had even had the lunch lady, someone who was going to bring these children food. Food is going to come up a lot more, so remember that. But Mica introduced it at this point, this lunch lady.
And she got it down to about $500 a child per year. And then I'm the good guy that's good with financial stuff. And so I was able to get it down to $300 for a year for a child to go to school there. And that includes the food that they get each day.
So after Mica brings this £500 per child idea, well, and then I'm the guy that's good with financial stuff. And so I was able to get it down to $300 for a year for a child to go to school there. And that includes the food that they get each day. So in all this telling of a story where he wants to convey what a great person his ex-wife Mica was, he ends up telling us how great he was because she had $500. But hey, I'm the guy that's good with the financial stuff, so I got it down to $300 a year. This guy is just such a high opinion of himself, such a low opinion of Mica, and wants to just tell us how great that he is. So this is Mica's legacy is written all over this video, and yet this is about John Paul telling us how great he is. I'm the guy that's good with financial stuff, and I was able to get it down to $300 a year. And by the way, once more, that includes the food that they get each day. Again, it's $300 a year for a child to go to school. So one word, school, and that includes the food that they get each day. So a lot more language, a lot more words used to talk about the food rather than the school once again. Let's get some more from this.
And so we sent a team at the beginning of this year, and we were expecting about 75, maybe 80 kids. The first day we had 150. By the end of the week, we had 300. And now we have about 350 children begging and pleading for us to start our school back in August of this year.
And so we sent a team the beginning of this year, and we're expecting about 75, maybe 80 kids. The first day we had 150. By the end of the week, we had 300. And now we have about 350 children begging and pleading for us to start our school back in August of this year. So we sent a team, he says. We sent a team. So who is we there? I'm not entirely sure who we is, but we sent a team. And he doesn't say what this team was doing. We sent a team. He doesn't even say where the team was sent. Just we sent a team. And this is where it starts to all become very woolly after the very specific chat about what the school was going to fund, the curriculum, the children and so on. It gets really woolly. We sent a team where, and we sent a team doing what. And he says, we're expecting about 75, maybe 80 kids. The first day we had 150. Doing what? Or there for what? Or how did you have them? We had 150. What? How? This is so... And where were these kids even? It's so generic. And also, by the end of the first week, they had 300 children. Yeah, so we sent a team at the beginning of the year. So some point in the beginning of the year, let's be charitable and say it's February. Then they had, by the end of the first day, 150. End of the first week, 300. So let's say that's February, they had 300. And now several months later, they've only added 50 to that. They were adding hundreds of kids in a week. And then since then, just another 50 has gone on to that. And for what? And for what? Well, again, his status comes in there. They are begging and pleading for us. For us. Again, who is us? Mike is gone now, so who is us? Who is John Paul referring to as us? But hey, this status is there again. He is the big guy above everything because these 350 children are begging and pleading for us. So we don't know who the team is. We don't know where the team met. We don't know who these kids are. We don't know where all this is happening. But hey, the status is there because they are begging and pleading for us to start the school back in August of this year. Now, this word back there is interesting. That sounds like the school finished and they want it to come back in August. But it never says the school started. He just said we had these children, but it doesn't say in the school or learning in the school or anything like that. But they want to start the school back in August of this year. This section here is just so woolly. And so we sent a team. Where? What team? Doing what? the beginning of this year. Again, that's quite vague. And we were expecting about 75, maybe 80 kids. The first day we had 150. By the end of the week, we had 300. So doubled in a week, and then it's gone up 50 in the space of maybe 6 months. Children begging and pleading for us to start our school back in August of this year. August is the most definitive thing that he says in all of that. This is when he needs something to happen in August, by the sounds of things.
And so in honor of Mica, we're doing it. It's her mission. She came up with it. She started it. She did all the work. She prepared the way. She laid the foundation. And so we are sending a team, and we're praying to God that we have enough of what we need to be able to feed the 300 and something kids, curriculum provided, teachers trained, and everything. And we're really, really excited.
And he says, so in honor of Mica, we're doing it. It's her mission. She came up with it. She started it. She did all the work. She prepared the way. She laid the foundation. In honor of Mica. And this is what he wants to get across all the time, is that he's doing this in honor of Mica. But I think, as I've explained, at every step of the way, the person he wants to honor most is himself, Pastor John Paul Miller. Honoring Mica is not high up in his priorities. High up in his priorities are himself. What a great guy he is. And are you getting all this story about what a great guy I am? And look, are you really honoring Mica? I mean, here we could say this is him giving her acknowledgement for the work here. But you notice what the acknowledgement is. She came up with it. She started it. She prepared the way. She laid the foundation. She didn't really do all that much then in his view, did he? She came up with it. She started it. She prepared the way. She laid the foundation. But hey, I, John Paul Miller, am the guy that is actually doing it. Because he says that. He says, we're doing it. We're doing it. Again, I wonder who this we is. Certainly he's not doing it himself, is he? Because we know from who he is, he would say, I'm doing it if it was him that was doing it. So this is about someone else and him. Maybe the church, maybe him and a new partner, or him and his family. I don't know. But he's not doing this himself. In fact, given how vague he is on the details, I would wonder how much he's doing of this himself. But just look, she came up with it. She started it. She prepared the way. She laid the foundation. She started it. She took the first little step, but I'm doing the big stuff. And so we are sending a team, and we're praying to God that we have enough of what we need to be able to feed the 300 and something kids, curriculum provided, teachers trained, and everything. We're really, really excited. Now, this is the interesting one for me here. We're praying to God that we have enough of what we need. Now, this is really, really vague. What is it that you want here, that you have enough of what you need? And if you're expecting a plea for money to come before the video ends, like I was, you're going to be disappointed. It doesn't come. I was convinced this was going to be, please go to a website and donate. Now, he will mention a website later on, but he doesn't ask in this video for donations. So I want to know, when we have enough of what we need, actually, does that just refer to esteem? Does that refer to respect that you have for me because I've done this video honoring Mica and Mica's legacy? Is that what he really gets? Is that what he wants? Once again, we've got all this vagueness going on. We're sending a team. Where? To do what? He doesn't say once more, you know. Are you sending them to McDonald's on the corner, or are you sending them to Africa to teach these kids? And then he says, food. Again, look, what comes first? He says, feed the 300 and something kids. Curriculum provided, teachers trained, and everything. We're really, really excited. Feed comes first. We're going to feed the 300 and something kids. By the way, it was 350 kids before. It's now just become the vague 300 and something. So it might not even be as high as 350. It might not be as many kids. Once again, when we come to the facts about this so-called faith school in Africa, he's very, very, very vague. And feed the 300 and something kids, then the curriculum, and then the teachers trained. This, I think, has become something about feeding kids, not schooling them in Africa.
So that's something we have to look forward to. We'll send you pictures when we start, when it comes out. And if you go to dare2caremissions.com, you'll see our website, and that's where Mica started, of course. And so if you love Mica, you got to love the people of Jabbrock, because that was her big thing that she enjoyed so much. Thanks.
So he finishes the video off. So that's something we have to look forward to. We'll send you pictures when it comes out. And if you go to daretocaremissions.com, you'll see our website. And that's what Mica started, of course. And so if you love Mica, you got to love the people of Jabrok, because that was her big thing that she enjoyed so much. Thanks. Common themes here. This is what Mica started. But hey, guess who's finishing it? We've got controlling and coercive language there. If you love Mica, you gotta love the people of Jabrok. So you don't have to love me. It's if you love Mica, you gotta love the people of Jabrok. He's telling us again what we gotta do. If you love Mica, you gotta do this. Yeah, and if you don't do this, you don't love her. It's the language of control and manipulation that is there. He also uses, and of course, which Mica started, of course. And look how stuttery he gets. When we start what, when it comes out, when what comes out, I get the impression that he wants us to think that the school is going to start in August with 300 and something kids and teachers and a curriculum, and the food as well, of course. But he doesn't say that. It's just when we start and when it comes out, and around everything beyond talking about Mica's dreams and thoughts of what this could be, he is incredibly vague. I just don't really believe that anything of this will happen. Notice his language as well. We have something, that's something we have to look forward to. We'll send you pictures when we start, and you'll see our website. So this is in conjunction with someone or something. He's not taking full ownership of it, and he's not making it sound real to me at all. There's just no detail about who this is for, where this is even, Jabrok is named there, but he doesn't actually say it's in Jabrok. Just, if you love Mica, you got to love the people of Jabrok. It's just weird beyond recognition. What's interesting is what point in that video JP drops out. About just after halfway, he stops saying the word I. Once he's done the section about being good with financial stuff, and so I was able to get it down to $300 a year for a child to go to school, that's the last time he mentions himself as a solo person. And then from that point, it moves into a different phase. It's weird. It's that weird vagueness that's there. It's that focus on food that's there. And it's all that weird way where he talks about we, but doesn't say who we are. And he talks about a team, but doesn't say who they are. So I kind of believe that the beginning of the story, there may be some truth in it, because there's two people in it. There's Mica and there's him. And then when he actually talks about delivering this school, specific people, any sort of specifics at all disappear, apart from food. The food stays there, but apart from that, any specifics disappear. It's very strange. I absolutely think there's some deception going on there, but I think more importantly from that, we can see what type of person Pastor John Paul Miller could be through his words. So instead of conclusions in this episode, I've got observations. This guy's controlling. We see, not a lot, but we see him use the language of control in this video, and the language of manipulation as well. I think he is belittling to Mica without even realizing it. Even when he thinks that he's saying what a great person she was, he talks about how she brought me a notebook like a good little girl. When she had an idea, I said, you can't do that. It's not possible. I think he is obsessed with money. It was the first thing that came in his list of reasons why they couldn't do this school in Africa. For some reason, I think this is really important. It has turned from an educational mission to a food kitchen. That is what has happened there. It's not about educating these kids in this African town. It's about delivering food there, which is just damn strange. And what is the point of the video? Yep, it wasn't an appeal for money like I thought it was going to be. I think, what is the point? I think the point is Pastor John Paul Miller. That seems to be the point of most of the things he does. It's about him saying, hey, what a great guy I am. Please respect me. Please love me. And maybe also please just tell me how amazing I am. Because, hey, I could get Mica's price down from $500 to $300. If you like this, please share it with other people. I know a lot of people share these episodes on WhatsApp when I never get to see them to say thank you for sharing it. So if you are one of those people that WhatsApps my links, then thank you very much. Love to know what you think of John Paul Miller. Have you seen anything else of him you'd like me to analyse? Let me know in the comments or get in touch on social media. All the links are in the show notes. And if you're not going to do any of that, the like button, in the blink of an eye, you could get this to so many more people. You are the marketing department of Never a Truer Word. Like I always say, if you hit that like button, it means more people get to see this and think about how useful it will be for some people to understand what people are really like, the people in their lives. Maybe you've been trying to tell someone that this person is no good. Now, maybe they will see, in the words of John Paul Miller, what they're seeing in other people in their life. If you subscribe on YouTube, you've got more episodes like this. If you follow on Spotify, you will get them as well. And if you want to become a member of the YouTube channel or a subscriber on Spotify, you get early access to episodes like this and exclusive members-only content as well. NeverATruerWord.com is a website. There's a whole load more podcasts. You can find out how to contact me on all the social medias going. More videos as well, and you can sign up for the monthly newsletter too. That's NeverATruerWord.com, and we'll see you for something new soon from Never a Truer Word.